Hello, welcome everyone to the today's seminar, Best Practices for an Effective Allergen Management. My name is Johanna Mieder and my colleague Annalisa Geratz is sitting in front of me, and we are both product managers within the food and feed analysis, and we are responsible for the allergens. So in the next approximately hour, we will give you an overview about the allergen management in general. And as you can see from the start screen, it will be an interactive seminar, which means that you can answer some questions during the seminar and in the end as well. If you have questions on your own, please feel free to comment them in the chat box below. And in the Q&A session afterwards, we will go back to them and answer them. Before we dive into the allergen management, I want to quickly introduce our company. So the R-Biopharm group is divided into three major segments. First, the clinical diagnostics, the food and feed analysis, and the nutrition care. R-Biopharm is represented worldwide, either by our subsidiaries, which are indicated in green, or by our distributors, which are marked in orange on this map. Within the food and feed analysis, we develop test kits to ensure food safety. For example, we provide test kits to detect residues like antibiotics and hormones or mycotoxins. We are also able to measure the content of acids and sugars within food by enzymatic analysis, and we develop test kits to ensure food with regard to food allergens. For the majority of people, the consumption of food is safe, but 2 to 4% of adults and 6 to 8% of children, they suffer from a food allergy. A food allergy is a malfunction of the immune system where the immune system specifically reacts to a protein within the food and thus synthesizes antibodies against them, so-called IgE antibodies. You may have wondered that the amount of children suffering from a food allergy is higher compared to the amount of adults suffering from a food allergy, and that's caused by the disappearance of food allergies within age. However, the number of affected persons is still increasing, and when a patient comes into contact with an allergen, this will trigger an allergic reaction. And those vary from mild to life-threatening, depending on the allergen, its intake, and the patient situation. Mild reactions might be indicated by swelling or itching, and life-threatening reactions like anaphylactic shock that involves multiple organ systems. Next to food allergies, there are also food intolerances, which do not go along with an immune reaction. They are metabolic diseases, for example, lactose intolerance, where lactose cannot be metabolized due to the lack of the enzyme lactase. Next to the food allergies and the food intolerances, there's another disease, so-called celiac disease or gluten intolerance, which combines elements of a food allergy and of an autoimmune disease. In here also antibodies are synthesized by the body, but they do not, or they differ from the ones of a food allergy. However, the immune reaction damages the small intestine, causing a chronic inflammation of the intestine. It is also important to know that the food allergies and the celiac disease cannot be cured, so there is no possibility that the diseases will go away over time. So the only therapy which is available in here is to strictly avoid food containing these allergens or gluten within their diet. The labeling of allergens is not internationally harmonized and based on national regulations. For example, in the EU, food manufacturers are responsible to label allergens since 2005, and which allergens need to be labeled. This is defined in the EU regulation 1169/2011. In here, 14 allergens are defined to be labeled, amongst others, egg, milk, peanut, soy, tree nuts, or wheat or gluten. This means that when one or more allergens are present within a food or when they are used as an ingredient, they need to be labeled by the manufacturers. However, when the risk assessment and the allergen management measures detect that there's an unavoidable risk of the allergen being present within the product, the food manufacturers can decide whether they label it or not. Usually, it is stated like may contain or may contain traces of. So the unintentional presence of an allergen due to cross contacts, for example, this is not defined within the EU regulation and based on a voluntary basis. It is still recommended to label them because of product liability reasons, for example. This table shows quite nicely which allergens are regulated in which countries. So as I said before, 14 allergens are regulated within the EU, whereas in Japan, for instance, only 5 allergens are regulated. The University of Nebraska, or also called FAB, provides a nice tool on their homepage where you just type in the allergen of interest, and on the map it is indicated where the allergen is regulated. The production of free-from products is a two-edged sword. For example, on the one hand, it is a business opportunity where allergen-free products are sold as premium products and can be sold with a higher profit. This is also shown within the UK study, where gluten-free products are sold with 250% higher prices compared to gluten-containing products. As said before, the numbers of people suffering from food allergy is still increasing, and due to the higher awareness of a healthy diet, the allergen-free market is one of the fastest growing segments within the food industry. On the other hand, the production of allergen-free products is also associated with increased production costs. So, for example, the procurement of allergen-free raw materials need to be considered. The ingredients, the raw materials, or even the final products need to be logistically separated from each other during transport or during storage, for example. Also, adaptations during the production process need to be made. For example, dedicated facilities, a dedicated production line, cleaning procedures need to be validated, and logistics need to be adapted. The food manufacturers take up an additional risk due to possible recalls, and of course, the testing of the raw materials or the final products or in between products is also very costly. That the awareness of allergen-free food is rising is also seen in small German supermarkets, where specific areas just provide allergen-free or gluten-free products. In Europe, there's also a rapid alert system for food and feed available, also called RASFF. And this figure shows quite nicely that between the years 2020 and 2022, in total 111 alerts were made because of missing or wrong labeling of allergens. Generally, a cross-contact is when an allergen unintentionally enters a product, which usually does not contain the allergen, and these are usually the result of an environmental exposure during product processing or handling. There are different sources for cross-contaminations. For example, raw material can be contaminated either during harvest or during growth or during transport. Next to that, the handling of air and particles is very critical. For example, when flowers are handled, dust may form, which go into the ventilation system and thus distribute throughout the facility and may contaminate different products. And finally, the cleaning needs to be sufficient to provide what do you call it? To provide safe products without contamination, or to ensure that no contamination is done. So there are different methods for allergen management, or there are different methods that detect the presence of an allergen, for example, lateral flow, ELISA, PCR, and LC-MS. Allergen analysis in general can be defined as the evaluation to identify or quantify the allergen within a material, and this is very critical for allergen management in general. For instance, the results provided within the allergen analysis, they ensure safety and verification of critical control points, and they support the implementation of a risk assessment and improve the allergen management plan. Which method is used best is depending on the interests or the needs, what needs to be detected, for instance. And before I will move on further, I want to ask you whether you use analytical methods already for allergen detection. So thank you very much for answering. I think you should hear me again, hear and see me again. So let's dive into the different types of methods in a more detailed way. Allergens can be detected by DNR, for example, by using PCR, or the allergenic proteins can be detected by immunobased assays like ELISA and LFT. By using PCR, or also called polymerase chain reaction, a specific piece of the DNA is amplified. And by using the real-time PCR, or also called qPCR, the DNA amplification is monitored during the PCR run by using fluorescent reporters or fluorescent dyes. And those dyes or reporters, they intercalate with the DNA, and the resulting signal is proportional to the concentration of the DNA. To conclude, PCR is very highly specific due to the application of target-specific primers, and quantification is possible. PCR has a disadvantage, and that's it detects DNA in general and doesn't provide any information about the allergenic protein expression or its presence within the material. To summarize, qPCR can be used for qualitative or quantitative control of foods. For this analysis, laboratory staff and laboratory equipment is needed, but multiple samples can be analyzed in parallel. It is even possible that one sample can be analyzed for multiple analytes, and qPCR is often used to confirm the results given by the ELISA. For the extraction of the DNA, there's also automation possible, for example, by the use of the Tanvit maelstrom. Next to PCR, there are also immunobased assays, and this principle is basing on a capture antibody, which is immobilized, and by the presence of an allergen or the antigen, it will bind to the capture antibody. When a second epitope is present, the detection antibody is able to bind to the allergen as well. For the ELISA assays, the detection antibody is usually enzyme-linked, providing a specific reaction. The principle of a sandwich ELISA is to detect intact proteins in here. 5 to 6 standard preparation with a known concentration are measured, and this enables the plotting of a standard curve, which is indicated on the left-hand side. And when you have measured a sample, you will get an absorbance, and by having a look at the absorbance, you can reach the concentration from the sample from the curve. This means that the analysis gives a quantitative result in milligram per kilogram or in ppm as well. To summarize, ELISA is used as a quantitative control of mainly foods. In here, also laboratory stuff and laboratory equipment is needed. Multiple samples can be analyzed in parallel, and ELISA is often used to confirm the qPCR and LFT results. For ELISA handling, an automation is also possible, for example, by the Thunderbolt. There's a second immunoassay, the LFTs, and for that, the principle is similar to the one of the ELISA assay. In here, also a capture antibody is immobilized on a membrane, and when the antigen or allergen is present, it will bind to the capture antibody and will be detected by the detection antibody. For lateral flows, the detection antibody is usually gold or latex labeled to visualize the results. In principle, the analyte comes into contact with the test strip on the left-hand side on the sample pad, and it will flow in the indicated direction, and will bind to the test line when the detection antibody is bound to the antigen, and this will indicate a positive or a negative result, which is seen on the right-hand side. So it will be a negative sample when only the control line indicated in blue is present, but when the red test line and the blue control line is seen, the sample is positive. If there are very high concentrations of the analyte present within the sample, the so-called hook effect may occur. And what the hook effect is and how it can be handled, this will be shown in the following video.
Rapid test strips have been developed for the detection of low allergen concentrations. Color-labeled antibodies bind to the target allergen in the sample to form an antibody-allergen complex. The antibody-antigen complex binds to the test line and the colored band becomes visible. Each lateral flow test has also a control line. Consequently, two lines are visible in case of a positive test result. If a large amount of allergen is present in a sample, the strip becomes overloaded, and what is known as the high-dose hook effect occurs. High allergen concentrations result in excess of free allergens because there is a limited number of color-labeled antibodies and only a certain number of antibody-antigen complexes that can form. If the free allergens bind to the test line, no coloration or only a faint line will be visible because the color-labeled antibody is missing. The strip may be interpreted as negative because only the control line is visible. A false negative result on a sample with very high allergen concentration creates a considerable risk for the user. As a solution, an additional hook line consisting of the target allergen has been integrated. If there is a low allergen concentration, an excess of unbound color-labeled antibodies is present in the test. These color-labeled antibodies then bind to the hook line and become visible. As the allergen concentration increases, the number of unbound color-labeled antibodies that can bind to the hook line decreases. Consequently, the hook line intensity will decrease with increasing allergen concentrations. In the case of extremely high allergen concentrations, both the hook line and the test line will be absent. Note that the control line must be present in any case for a correct test result, and in combination with missing test and hook line, it indicates a highly positive test result. With the help of the hook line, a clear distinction can now be made between true negative and highly positive samples.
So I'm sorry for the video. I don't know what went wrong, but I hope everyone was able to see it now. So as you can see, the evaluation of LFDs with hook line is different compared to the evaluation of LFDs without hook line. So the sample is negative when the test strip with hook line indicates two lines, like the hook line and the control line. It is positive when three lines appear, so all three lines, the test line, hook line, and control lines are present. It is still positive when only the test line and control line is present, or when only the control line is present. But for this, there's a high positive result indicated, and you may need to repeat the test with a higher sample dilution. The test is invalid when no control line appears, and you may also repeat the test again. To summarize, the lateral flow tests, they are a fast and easy qualitative control of multiple samples, for example, for hygiene samples, for instance, swabs. So when you have a production line and produce an allergen-containing product and afterwards an allergen-free product, you need to make sure that the cleaning was sufficient. And for that, you can use swabs and swab a specific surface in order to make sure that the equipment and the plant is cleaned. Next to that, sip water can be analyzed, and foods, for example, raw material and the final product. And because those LFDs are so simple and fast, it is also suitable for non-laboratory staff, and no laboratory equipment is needed for that. And with that, I want to hand over to my colleague.
Yeah, thanks, Johanna, for giving an overview and introduction to allergen detection methods and the food allergen situation. I will now move on with the topic of allergen management. So now, since we have an overview and which methods are used within allergen management and for what they are used, now more in detail, what you can do as a food manufacturer or a supplier, whatever, to perform an allergen management. Here you can see a graphic, which will also be available for download at the end of the presentation, where we wanted to show from farm to fork, so from the beginning of the life cycle of a product till the end, what you can do or where you can do an allergen analysis and with which purpose. In general, an aim of an allergen management in total, so not only the testing of allergens, this is only a small part of allergen management, because you have also preventive actions which you can perform, or other activities in order to perform an allergen management. The end of all that is, on the one hand, for the consumer to offer safe food by preventing cross-contamination from farm to fork, and of course for the manufacturer to avoid recalls, complaints, and consequently also additional costs, and also to strengthen or guarantee the reputation of your company by preventing these recalls and complaints. In the next slides, I will go step by step through this flow chart or flyer and give examples for preventive actions, what you can do, and also where you can perform allergen analysis and which methods we are recommending. But allergen management is a real big topic, so you could have days of training. We hope to give you insights and an idea and some information you can take home, and that you hopefully learn something in this regard. But before starting, as a general recommendation is that you implement an allergen control team in your company with different people from different departments, like someone from quality control, from production purchase. So important people included in this team. And then to create an allergen flow chart. So recognize where allergenic components are present in the factory and or where they are integrated. And with this, you can also pick out really high risk points of the production process. You can perform then a risk assessment and also at the end create an allergen control plan with which the company is working with. And here is very important to update it if required. So if you have a change in a supplier, if you have a new supplier, maybe a new process, or you have new equipment that you need to update it, check, do you need to change something? Do you maybe have new risk points in this process? And in general, what Johanna already explained very well is that there are the 3 different methods which are frequently used: PCR, ELISA, and lateral flow. They have different areas of application. They are not excluding each other. They can also be used in combination depending on the need. And also as one of the biggest value of a company, I think, are the employees. And I could name this point in every step. That's why I really wanted to tell it at the beginning, to train your employees. So that's one of the most important things within an allergen management, so that the people also working with the allergen control plan, knowing what to do, when to do, and also why they should do it. So to protect the company, but also the consumer, and that you, of course, train new employees, but also have maybe frequent, like yearly or every 2 years, refreshing training regards allergen management. So normally every food product starts with the raw material, best on the field. And here you also already can do a lot of preventive actions to minimize the risk of cross-contamination. So at the end, it's always the aim to, if you as a food manufacturer want to offer a free-from product, you want to minimize the risk of a cross-contamination, because if you have a cross-contamination, you either have to label the allergen or you can't release a product and have to throw it away, maybe, depending on your regulations or rules in the company. So for the raw material, of course, you can request certificates of analysis, where is written down what is a material, is it free from, does it contain any allergen, etc. You can do supplier audits and check for the labeling of the raw material. And something which seems to be easy but is very important is to assure that the shipment and pallets meet the segregation requirements, if there are some, and also inspect for damage. So there's maybe a big delivery and all kinds of material, allergen-free, allergen-containing. If you have maybe a wheat flour there and some packages are damaged, the risk is high, or the probability is high, that a lot of other material, which is normally gluten-free, now is contaminated with the gluten by the flour. Where you can perform allergen analysis, here, of course, you can check for the correctness of the labels. So if you ordered a gluten-free material, you have the certificate where it's written down it's gluten-free. You can be better safe than sorry, control it by doing an analysis. Here, of course, because of the easiness, you don't need a laboratory, you don't need any training. We definitely recommend the lateral flow. Here you have the yes, no, but you know at the end, is the allergen, or is it really allergen-free or not? And this guarantees you from the beginning that you may detect cross-contaminations or can prevent cross-contaminations, that you are sure, okay, it's really free from. Or also not only if you are like getting the material, but if you're a supplier and you want to sell it, before preparing the certificate, that you check your material. I want to label it gluten-free. Is it really gluten-free? So I can be sure that the certificate is correct. A good example for high contamination factor is during the harvesting, because you have a lot of material growing on shared fields, or you have seasonal growings. And a very good example is always the cross-contamination of garlic with peanut, because they often grow in similar geographic locations and they are often processed at the same facility. And we frequently get requests from customers that they have a food product and it's peanut positive. They can't explain it. Maybe they test it by their own, then they send a sample to a service laboratory and it's still positive, so they can't sell the product because they first need to investigate the issue. Is it really a contamination? Maybe it's a problem of cross-reaction or matrix effect of the method. And during investigation, often the reason was that it is a real contamination of the garlic, that the garlic component of the food product was contaminated by peanut. And here, if maybe the peanut was tested at the beginning, so before bringing it into the food, this issue could have been avoided. So as the next step, during transport and storage, here you have also some options for preventive actions. One good, easy, and effective tool is to have a clear labeling of allergenic materials by using icons or color coding, as an example on the right. So even if you train your employees carefully, but still there's maybe external workers or someone who is unsure, but if you have these signs, everyone knows, okay, I need to be cautious, I need to take care. With the symbols, you maybe know, okay, here it's milk, gluten, so that it makes it much easier than if you only have it written down in small black letters on a big label. Another activity you can do is to separate allergenic and non-allergenic material. This is, of course, not always possible, depending on the company, but then you can have a dedicated storage. So as an example is that you always should store the allergen-free material above allergen-containing material, so that you avoid contamination due to gravitation, or something is damaged and it's normally not flying up but flying down. So here you also minimize the risk of cross-contamination. And of course, very important here is cleaning, trucks, rooms, everything which is included in this process. And also here comes an example for testing in place. As an example, on a truck, maybe on Monday the truck is delivering wheat flour, and always flour is a good example for high risk contamination material. And on the next day it's maybe a gluten-free material. And even if the truck is visibly free of wheat flour, there may all still be or residues of the allergen, which can then contaminate the gluten-free product. So, of course, cleaning is very important as a preventive action, but to be really sure if the cleaning was sufficient, you can use a lateral flow test for checking just in corners or surface on the truck, is it cleaned sufficiently or not? And if not, you know, okay, I need to clean again, or I need to change my cleaning procedure, that I'm ensuring that the cleaning is done sufficiently. And here also, before maybe bringing the material in your storage, that you also check with a lateral flow for the label or the correctness of the label. Then after procurement of material, transport, maybe storage, at the end it comes into the facility or the plant where you probably have an incoming goods control. And here as preventive action, Also to check the label, what is written down, what are the allergen information, are them as expected, maybe there are changes from the supplier, and here also inspect for damage when it comes into your facility, and also request certificates and documentation from the supplier. And here you can also perform different kinds of analysis to be sure and to check, for example, for correctness of the labels, again, with a lateral flow, fast and easy. But there are also companies having an own laboratory which check their incoming material with an ELISA or with a PCR. I just visited, for example, a company in the USA, and they check every incoming material for all 14 allergens. And when they are free from these allergens, they are introduced in the plant. And afterwards, they don't test anymore, because everything with what comes in is tested. And if it's negative, it can go through, and if not, they deny it. So that's also where you can perform an allergen management. And also here, it's to prevent that you contaminate your equipment material by external material which is introduced. And the production here, of course, a lot of risks for contamination, which were also already explained by my colleague. And as preventive actions, you can bundle your production processes so that you one specific amount of time only produce maybe gluten-free material, and then the milk-free material, and then bundling all allergen-containing products. And this can also be part of this allergen control plan that you define the production processes. You can have dedicated production lines or equipments, or if you have the possibility, but I think there are not much companies who have this, but you can dedicated buildings or rooms. So I know a company which has a facility which is completely peanut free. So even workers are not allowed to bring, for example, peanuts or peanut bread for their lunch. So peanut is completely forbidden in this factory in order to really prevent contamination or to minimize contamination. Of course, this is not always possible. So then you can plan, as I already said, by bundling the production processes, but also like producing allergen-free products before allergen-containing products. And also here, probably as in every step, the cleaning. So especially after allergen-containing products were produced, that you sufficiently clean the plant. And another thing which can be done is to have dedicated personnel. So a person who is working on that day is only responsible for the allergen-containing products, or maybe only for the peanut-free products. Maybe they can be signed with colored hats or face masks so that you can distinguish them to minimize the risk factor of the human person as a contamination source. And here you also have different possibilities to do in testing. So I think some were already explained by Johanna, but one of, I think, most important is to check the cleaning efficiency or to control the cleaning. And I think this is a really common thing already. So that after your cleaning process, that you fast and easy check your surface with a lateral flow or the sip water, so the cleaning water. Are there still residues of the allergen? Do I need to clean again? And the most effective way to go would be to have in this allergen control plan a defined cleaning process, which was validated or verified before. So you extensively check during this process the allergen content in order to find the optimized cleaning procedure. And this cleaning procedure can then maybe be checked after every production or every 2 or 3 months. But there are also a lot of companies who want to maybe have external certificates or an independent testing. So there are a lot of factories sending swab samples to an external lab, which then test them in an ELISA. So that's also a possibility. And of course, very important for the final product, before bringing it into the market to the consumer, to check if the allergen indications are in compliance with the labeling and with what is really inside. Here, of course, you can do a kind of screening with a lateral flow. You can use a lateral flow for raw material and processed material, but it's just a fact. A lateral flow is fast and easy. Most of the time you have a water extraction, so really easy extraction, and this is not as effective as the extractions which you have with an ELISA. So the ELISA, if you really want to have a final product confirmation, we always recommend to use an ELISA, because there you have just a better extraction, and at the end you can be safer to have the right result. And if it's negative, then it is really negative. Of course, you can also use a PCR. Often it is done that if you have a positive ELISA, you confirm it, or you want to confirm it with a PCR, because with immunobased assays, there may be problems with cross reactions of the antibody or matrix effects, which you can recheck with the PCR. And as I said, can be used in combination, but also depends on the possibilities the company have. And there's a lot of applications for the different methods. Also, as part of the product life cycle, maybe laboratories. So of course, there are a lot of factories who don't have an own laboratory but send it to a service lab. But nevertheless, a service lab has his lab, or companies having their own laboratories, either maybe quality control or an allergen laboratory or a research and development laboratory. Here, of course, cleaning is very important. You can also bundle your processes, for example, for a service lab or also a food company, that you maybe collect all allergen containing or all allergen free products or samples within a week and test it then together at one day, and not that you have every day all kind of samples. And also you can have here separate buildings or rooms. And here for where you can perform allergen analysis is again checking for the cleaning efficiency and to control the cleaning, because I think it is a real issue, or I think it also is happening that maybe you have your own lab, you check your sample and then it's positive, then you send it to a service lab and it's also positive, then you start to investigate where this comes from. Is it a really contamination of your food product? And sometimes at the end the investigation or concluded that your mixer or your centrifuge or maybe your buffer was contaminated, leading to this positive result. So here you can also, maybe if you want to check, or you have the day where you check gluten samples, that before testing you use a lateral flow, checking your equipment, is everything clean, and in order to prevent these false positive results. And of course, you also have in this process the trade, commercial kitchen, maybe other incoming goods control. Here also you can check with different methods for the compliance with allergen indications and the labeling. So since we're a kit manufacturer, I at the end wanted to conclude or give an overview of the purpose of the allergen analysis. As you maybe recognize, there are a lot of actions you can do in order, or as part of allergen management, in order to prevent cross-contamination, and why to do allergen analysis. I hope you could figure out during my last slides, but of course, main aim is to prevent cross-contamination. So prevent that you unintendedly introduce an allergen and just find it out at the end when you want to bring it into the market. So during the whole process, check the materials, the ingredients, the incoming goods, verificate and support your cleaning programs. And of course, at the end, very important, the finished product confirmation. And also when the product is on the market, and as Johanna showed, there are recalls occurring frequently. So there and these recalls were because of true contaminations. There are probably much more warnings, but to investigate these warnings, complaints, you also need test methods to check, okay, was my product really unsafe for the consumer? I labeled it peanut free, but it was peanut inside. And for this, you may also need the test systems. Here to show you our portfolio of allergen detection methods. So we at R-Biopharm offer all mentioned methods which are normally used within allergen management. So we offer qPCR, as you can see, for various parameters, including, of course, the 14 which are obligatory in Europe, but also a lot of others. And also automation is possible here. Also for ELISA, we have different kind of test systems. As you can see, for example, for milk or gliadin, we offer different kind of test systems. For milk, for example, a total milk, which includes both proteins of milk, beta-lactoglobulin and casein, but we also have separate test systems for only detecting casein or beta-lactoglobulin. And to explain our gliadin test kits shortly. So all our test kits are based on the monoclonal R5 antibody, but in order to serve all possible demands and needs of the customer, we develop different kind of applications with this antibody. So all our own test kits, but with the same antibody, but different calibration. So we have the reader screen gliadin, which is the only AOAC OMA method with an all foods certification. This is the Codex Type 1 method, and it's like if you want to have the best validated certified method, you need to use this, but often facilities don't need this high level of certification. Then we also have a fast gliadin, so this test is much faster than the official one. We have a competitive gliadin, so in order to check for hydrolyzed samples like beer or syrup or sourdough. We also have a sensitive test because there are some customers who want it more sensitive, even if there is the threshold of 10 ppm. 20 ppm. Some wants it more sensitive. And we also have the total gluten, which also includes some other antibodies which don't have the issue with rye and barley, which is or which the R5 antibody has. But this is another topic which we could talk a lot about, but just to give you a short overview. And here our lateral flow portfolio. So we have most parameters are within the BioVit series. They all have an included hook line, except milk. But here the milk test is a total milk test, so it detects casein and beta-lactoglobulin. And to include a hook line, you probably would need 2 lines because you have 2 proteins you are detecting, and this is not that easy. That's why currently this is without a hook line, but all other parameters are with included hook line. Within the Reader Quick series, we offer the soy and the gliadin test. And just to point out the gliadin, so we are the only manufacturer allowed to sell a dipstick with the R5 antibody. On the picture on the right is the yellow strip. And what's also a specialty, a unique functionality of this test is that you can use the test strip directly for swabbing. So you really have results in 5 minutes. You take the swab, the test strip, swab over the surface and put it in the vial, and then you have your results in 5 minutes. For the other tests, for the BioAvid, you need an external swab, which you also can see on the picture, which then add 5 minutes of time for the test. Is still fast, but that's the specialty of the quick gliadin. And since the BioAvid series was just recently introduced to R-Biopharm, so also the manufacturing is transferred to our headquarters here in Darmstadt, Germany. So the products are really developed or manufactured here at our headquarters. And in this transfer, we optimized the test strips and to point out the advantages. So as I already said, all except milk have the included hook line. In the kit, everything is included for hygiene control, so swabs and swabbing buffer. The only equipment you would need is if you want to test food samples, then you need a mixer for grinding and a filter or centrifuge. Both is possible, but everything else is included. You have fast and reliable results in 10 minutes. It's suitable for everyone, especially after Corona. Everyone knows how a dipstick is working, so you don't need trained staff. For BioAvid, we have 16 parameters and all have completely same procedure. So all implementation is the same for all parameters. You can use it for all kinds of applications, food testing, surfaces, and cleaning water, and also positive controls included. Something which is quite new, which I also wanted to announce, is that we have now, to simplify your workflow, launched a free of charge documentation app, the so-called Reader Smart App Allergen, because we know also from our laboratory, so a dipstick is wet. So you put it in liquid, the liquid flows up, you have a wet test strip. And also the result evaluation, every kit manufacturer writes in the result interpretation to read the result after 5 minutes, plus minus 30 seconds, maybe a minute. In this time frame, the result is valid. Because you don't know how the strip changes after time. The result can darken, it can fade with time. So you don't know how the result will maybe look like after a year. Especially a negative test strip may change after time to be slightly positive. You never know. But that's why keeping strips is normally not that sensible. But still, also we here at R-Biopharm did it in the past. But you would then have thick books, they're impractical. And for these reasons, we developed this documentation app. This allows you a mobile documentation. It's really simple and intuitive with any Android device. So the device or the app is not calculating anything. So you need to, as an operator, need to decide the result or evaluate the strip. But that's why you can do it with any Android device. So either smartphone or a tablet, it just needs to have a camera, of course. You have a detailed overview of your rapid allergen test data. And here, since you make a photo, the results are valid over how long you store them. And you have an increased efficiency since you save time because you only have to scan, make a photo, and then save it. The app can be used for or with all BioAvid tests and also the Reader Quick Allergen tests, so the gliadin and the soy. As I said, the app is free of charge. So just if you have an Android device, just go in the Play Store, download it, and try it out. And maybe you like it. You can give us feedback if you have some improvements. But yeah, that's something quite new. So we would be happy if you maybe we'll try it out and if we can improve your workflow with this kind of service we're offering. Yeah, with this, we're at the end of our presentation. I hope we could give you some insights, some new takeaways, some new input for you, your company. At the next slide, again, we have some questions, which would be great if you could answer them. And afterwards, we would maybe answer some open questions. I think we already got some questions in the chat and answered already some. And also on the last slide, then you can download some material, also a brochure of our allergen portfolio. And with this, I would go to the questions. Because I see the wishing topic for another webinar as an announcement. So we will have in 3 weeks, on the 16th of May, we will have a webinar training, which, or maybe my colleague can.
Yeah, it's a BioVit user training. So in there, critical steps are our topic of that. So which critical steps need to be considered to perform a BioVit test, and which sample extractions can be made, and so on.
So it's free for everyone. Feel free to register, to participate. There we will, in regards to lateral flow BioVit testing, talk about good laboratory practices. We also plan by the mid-end of the year gluten user training, but this is still in planning.
Next to that, in the BioVit user training, it is also explained how the app is used for BioVit and for the Reader Quick essays. So please feel free to register for that, and we were happy to welcome you there too.
So, yeah, as already said, thanks for joining. And here on the left, you can see the documents for downloading. Most of them are also available on our website, where is also the link or other social media. You're always welcome to contact us or our distributor or your sales representative. I think we got some questions. Maybe we can shortly go through it. So there was a question about peanut allergy due to airborne. It is that if the peanut protein is really in the air, there might be or there can occur a reaction, but still it is mild. So there are no cases where air dust allergy or air dust peanut contamination lead to an anaphylactic shock. So that are really more or less mild symptoms. And it's also the example I named. If you open a peanut butter tube, you will not have a reaction because there will not be peanut proteins introduced into the air. So, of course, if you have wheat flour or are grinding peanuts, then of course you have a higher risk of bringing peanut protein into the air.
Yeah. So there was another question where I just read it. So in the industry of some clients are asking us for methods to detect contamination in airborne or dust. And we don't have a recommended method for that, but what can be tried is to do the sampling with a filter and then extract the filter as a sample matrix with ethanol for gluten or different buffers for other parameters. And you can then apply the extract in an ELISA.
Yeah. Then there was in this also the question for testing hands for cross-contamination.
Yes, I just answered it. So firstly, it is hygiene plan is needed for the operators, and it is usually recommended to use single-use gloves for or within the production. But if that's not possible, or when the hands need to be tested, again, you can apply swabbing and just detect it with a BR-bead assay, for example.
And as my colleague also wrote, the recording will be uploaded on YouTube, so you can watch it, send it again. So that will be available. It will need some days, but as soon as it is available, we will let you know.
Yeah, the next question was for ELISA methods within a laboratory, what cross-contamination prevention actions do you recommend? So firstly, dust needs to be prevented, but before applying an ELISA, you can clean the surface of your working bench and, for example, test it with a swabbing method and BR-bead, for example, just to check or to make sure that the working bench is clean from this allergen which needs to be applied, because some of our ELISA tests are very sensitive to the allergen. And of course, when the laboratory is close to the production area, the air ventilation system should not be the same, because due to flowers or handling of flowers, for example, those dust can form and then enter the ventilation system and thus can contaminate your laboratory as well. So just a few ideas.
And there was a question from Julio about information on the ELISA test kit. So you can have a look on our website. There are some information and in the instruction for use. Of course, the detection limits, quantification limits, and specifications vary depending on the parameter. We also have validation reports for every parameter, which are available on request. So for this, write us via our email or contact for your local distributor. There you will get the information. And you also ask, for example, for sesame. So we have some kits in 48 well format. We have some in 96. As you said, or already recognized, the sesame from us is only 48 kit size. Currently, that's the only kit size we have. In future, there will also be a 96 format, and it's generally planned in future that we only offer 96 well test kit systems. So, but currently we only have for sesame the 48 reaction kit. And Niris asked if our products mention detect traces of allergens. Yes, so all our test systems are developed in order to check for traces or residues. So, for example, the Gliden test is not developed for detecting the gluten content. So if you have a gluten bread and you want to know how much gluten is inside, of course you can work with dilutions, but the test systems are developed for traces and residues. So there is a really low detection limit. Okay, I think we have every question.
No.
If anything pops up afterwards, contact us every time. We are always lucky to help you, to support you if you have any questions. And with this, I wish everyone a good evening, good morning, depending on which time zones you are in. For us here in Germany, it's now afternoon, so soon work off. And we were happy to present you this topic today, and we hope that you have some takeaways and could learn something.
And hopefully you will see us on May 16th for the pre-IVD user training. So yes, have a nice day and a nice week. Thank you very much.